All right, so we're going to bash through this one real quick. Just by the nature of it, this was intended to be a shorter lecture where we could just kind of break down after the lecture and talk or have a guest or whatever. So we're going to rattle through this one. It's only about 30 slides. And once it's all done, I'll get this uploaded and we'll wrap up for the end of the year. But yeah, so the idea behind this lecture was I wanted to make sure that we talked not just about getting a job, especially in the face of the job interviews and networking and everything else that we've been talking about. We've spent a lot of time talking about how to get you in the door, but we should take some time to talk about what happens once you're there, once you actually got a job, because as much as you guys might be stressing about it, you're all going to get jobs. That's not a concern. You will figure it out. It might be some stress or some panic on the day, but you will get it figured out. It's not going to be too bad. So with that in mind, we're going to get straight into it. And the idea today is sort of the dynamics and understanding a little bit around team environments. Now, obviously, you've got the job, so we're done. Time to chill, right? Kick our feet up, pull a paycheck, call it a day for the rest of the time, never worry about things again. Obviously, that's not the case. Obviously, that's not how this is going to roll. And we need to make sure that we keep our game up. Obviously, once you get a job, yes, you're getting a paycheck, yes, your career is on track, but we spent a long time talking about how networking does not stop when you get your first job. Networking is not simply to make your first job and never worry about it again. Networking it's a garden that you keep working on and pruning and tuning and taking care of your entire life. And if you can do that, and if you can take good care of it, then the rewards are ridiculous and the rewards are endless. To really push the metaphor, the fruit and the fruit that gets born by that is amazing. So, as a result, you can imagine networking doesn't just look externally to other people. It doesn't just look externally to people outside of your work environment who might be able to help you with technical issues or work or all the things we've talked about before. Networking also occurs just as frequently on the interior when you're working inside of a company. Because when you start working at a company, you're beginning to deal with a whole litany of new restrictions and complications and obligations that you haven't dealt with before. And I've kind of alluded to it a little bit with a simple 2-letter word of doom known as HR, whose job it is to make sure that basically nothing bad ever happens. And I heard someone describe it this way, and I loved it, and I've always used it since, which is that HR and all bureaucracy is the art of making the possible impossible. And I think that gets you halfway there. What they're trying to do in any bureaucratic organization is ensure that any bad possibility cannot happen. The problem is that bureaucracy sees fun as an inevitable and necessary casualty to ensure that no bad ever happens. They don't want to be the fun police. It's not their goal to make your job shitty or unfun. It's just they need to make sure that the job isn't going to be bad for anybody. And if that means they have to kill your fun in order to ensure that, it's a necessary casualty that they're willing to sacrifice. So just bear in mind that you may, with great inevitability, have to deal with HR being the fun police on more than one occasion. And it's fine, it's the way it is, and you need to respect it, because at the end of the day, HR is above and beyond the number one group that will be able to hire and fire you your entire life. So as much as it might be a shame that they get to police your fun or they might make things difficult, they run the game, and you gotta play ball with them, and you gotta be nice to them, because they're also there to help you, which sometimes people forget. And as a result, these obligations come in a bunch of different ways. Most notably, we need to make sure that we meet all those same player biases, all those same obligations on expectations of look and everything else, and putting the work in, aka no goddamn hoodies, that we're going to see throughout the work environment. Yeah, no hoodies, right? nobody actually cares, but the point is you need to at least look to see what other people are doing at your office, meet those obligations, try and maintain that standard, because you need to be professional, because they're going to be looking for you to be professional as much as possible. But the problem is I was mentioning it before with networking, and it goes beyond networking. All of those discussions around firm handshakes and listening to people and team environments and Scrum and everything in project management and everything around talking to people. Every single day for the rest of your life, you are going to have to go into work and you're going to have productive, meaningful conversations with people every single day. This is not the kind of environment or career where you can have water cooler talk every day and just kind of shoot shit, not really get much, just kind of type away your computer, not really get much done. Video games operate on a pretty strict deadline. And as a result, every day you need to be having and seeking to have as many meaningful conversations as you can, which means you have to talk to, share with, and listen to a lot of people every day. And we've kind of alluded to it before, but this is also an industry where people get really frustrated and really stressed out. So you're going to have to be exercising a lot of conflict resolution every single day. And these are things that you're just going to have to be ready to roll with. And it's practice that you're going to get on a pretty consistent basis. So just be ready to do a lot of talking and have a nice, quiet, safe space on standby for when you cannot do any more talking. It would be my biggest recommendation. Because this is an industry where there's a lot of team dynamics, a lot of teamwork. You don't get to hang out and just do your thing nearly as much as many people would like, unfortunately. You're going to have to work as a team. You're going to have to be constructive. You're going to have to work with people. So you need to own that, and you need to be at peace with that, because it's going to be a constant and persistent part of your life that you'll have to deal with this. Oh, by the way, this gets worse when you're a team leader and you need to be the one giving notes to people. For any of you who worked in a team in Capstone, you got a glimpse of a shadow of this. Imagine when you're dealing with 40 people, several of whom have worked on big AAA titles and have an ego. Deservedly, but an ego. And you have to motivate and get all those people to cooperate every single day. It can be a bit of a nightmare. And it's fine. It's fun. It's a problem that we deal with, and it's a solution we have. And the more practice you get, the easier it's going to be. And as you get better at it, you'll get promoted. And there will be new challenges for you to get better at. It's just, we got to own this and be ready for it. The only way you're going to get to not talk to anybody is if you do the Phil Fish, Bennett Foddy route, and look at how stressed Phil got. I wouldn't recommend it. So we really need to take the time and focus on what are those core skills that you need to focus on to make sure, and practice to make sure that you're going to be able to do all this talking and do all this team leadership and do all this management to ensure that you're going to have a productive and positive professional team environment life for your whole career, and make sure that nobody ends a conversation in a fist fight, which can happen, and you'd be surprised. That's why HR is always there to make sure that nothing bad can ever happen. As long as nothing fun happens too, it's fine. So as a result, we need to talk about a few key factors that I want to bring back to the fore. First and foremost, I need to stress this to you guys. I cannot do so enough. Communication, and particularly listening, are two of the most important skills you can ever develop in your entire career. If someone's stressed out, just being able to shut the fuck up and listen to what they're saying and hear them out, even if they don't even need you to offer an answer, or they do, or you know the exact answer and you can stop the whole thing. Sometimes just listening to a person run their problem through and listening to a person vent their frustration can be the most valuable thing of all. And this is a team leadership touch and go, get to know these people type of dynamic, where the better you know people, the more you understand what they actually need. But in most cases, just hearing out all of the components of a problem or just the frustrations of someone will help that person understand not just the solution, but help them feel better about it because now they've gotten to vent their anger out. Furthermore, when you become a team leader, one of the most valuable things you can do is actually listen to the people under you. There's a misconception. The people who've gotten to the professional level know everything or are better able to deal with situations or better able to understand all the components of a problem. Sometimes they get shit wrong, or they don't understand, or they just don't have all the data, or they just make a bad call. And so the best team leaders will listen to the people underneath them and listen to their advice, especially in a field where we have so many people working very specific technical jobs. I might be a team lead, but I did all my actual my work before getting promoted doing environment design, let's say. I should be listening to my network techs and listening intently to what they think we should be doing. Even if I disagree and make a call, I should be doing my best to listen to what they have to say. Now, conversely, at the same time, you need to listen to your bosses. If you make your best advice based on your expertise and they say, no, do this, in most cases, it's probably best to do what they tell you. I'm going to talk more about that in a minute. Where listening and all of this conversation becomes very valuable is when we begin talking about the idea of problem solving, especially in interpersonal conflicts. One of the things that HR is often going to ask people to do when they get into a personal dispute is they literally mandate that you have to sit in a room and you have to listen to what the other person has to say. Because understanding is it's not even half the battle, it's 90% of the battle. As long as you understand where both parties are coming from, it's usually very easy to, at the very least, forgive them, if not agree with them. And sometimes you won't ever understand the stupid shit that somebody did, and vice versa, they may not understand a stupid thing that you did. Often it's about just accepting it, forgiving it, and moving on. Because also, and this is very important, sometimes you're going to have to work with people you don't like. Suck it the fuck up. Deal with it. Welcome to the real world. You don't always get what you want. And if you don't like somebody and you need to keep working with them, then these things around problem solving become even more critical. If you don't like somebody, then you need to take a lot of time to make sure that you're able to work productively with them. Because it's not your job to like people, it's your job to make a game. And if you don't like people, and all it does is make your job harder, so you need to be able to make sure you can work well with them. I can tell you that from experience. Sometimes, I told a story earlier in the year about somebody who, when we were talking about when a resume crosses the table and people say, not that guy, I had a whole work experience with that person before their resume came across the table and I said, not that guy. We got a whole film done. Whether or not there were problems, we still had to get a film done. You need to be able to exercise that. And you can, when a project is finished or you've moved on to another company, you can retain that information. But on the day, during the job, you have a job to do, and that needs to come first and foremost. In general, most problem solving will be done team-based, or it'll be done where you can pull somebody into a room and go like, I don't understand what the hell is happening. Sometimes people will listen to you, and that's when you need to focus on communicating to them. Which is very important that you can keep information concise and clean and clear. And then you can talk people through specific problems as quickly as possible with the minimum amount of effort. It's challenging. It's a whole skill that you have to build. It's just being able to explain shit is very difficult. Look at how teaching is the perfect example. It's not easy. But if you can get good at it, especially in a small team environment, let alone like big lectures, that's a whole other ballgame. But even in a small team environment, if you can explain technical systems to other technical people in a way that's efficient and clear, that will make you already excellent team lead material. Because it's a very valuable skill to develop, and it's something that's very important for team leads. To be able to listen to one person, hear a problem, go to 4 other people, and reshape the information so it makes sense to those new technical people so that they can find the solution to the problem that's fucking up another person in another department. Which is like 3/4 of your job when you're a team leader, is finding out what's wrong, going to another person, sorting out how to fix the thing that's wrong, and then going back to the original person and telling them the solution that a different technical person explained. So you need to be able to understand, at least to some extent, what everybody's doing and be able to repackage it for other people. Sound like fun? Or you can be like David Maynard and just stick to code your whole life. Honestly, worked out. This is where getting out workflow tools is going to be really important and really useful. Being able to actually use the systems we talked about in production management to create timelines, even short-term, critical paths for like 5 or 6 days around, here's what we're going to do every few hours for the next 3 days to make sure we've done the bug testing, we've solved this problem. Can be really effective. Or if you need to crunch out a game or whatever, if you just need to keep people on track, keep them honest, tools like Trello, everything like that can be really useful, even internally when you're not a boss, to help keep everybody on track. So I'd highly recommend go back and look through our material from production management and consider what tools you can bring to a work environment that might be effective. And just look to see what your team leads are already employing, because they'll already have systems in place. So are you able to work with those systems? Are you able to just reference those systems? Do you need to take somebody's face and press it against the monitor of their computer and make sure they're looking at their deadlines? Because sometimes people don't. All these things. And just keep track of all of that. And then finally, this is one that's more personal. And this is one that I would drive home to you guys has been a key factor in my life and how I've handled professional stuff for a long time. Which is quite simply, you need to always maintain your eye on the prize for getting shit done. Always, always remind yourself and check back in on what is due with the most immediacy and the least immediacy. That was the whole point of the critical path timeline that we talked about, going back to the last slide, is this idea of understanding what are pressing needs and what can be pushed back so that we can get the stuff that is most critical done to enable the next set of most critical material. It is essential when you're working in a system like game design because there's so much to do and so many things that rely on other things even a little bit. So you must keep a clear line in terms of how are you going to get stuff done. By the way, you can't quite see it. I'm going to see if I can model it. So I can't model it on the fly. But this is for your team. You need to be able to work with your team to know exactly what needs to get done so that you can be productive as a crew and you can keep your whole team honest and keep yourself honest. If your team's relying on you to do stuff, you can show them, here is how I'm going to get stuff done. This is my priority list. Do you need me to change any priorities, or do you need me to work harder to get any of this done sooner so you can get your shit done? These are the elements that make for an effective team and will make you an excellent team member, especially after your first few years when you're just doing like drudge work code and you actually get into doing more complicated applications and solutions. This kind of shit is going to be what makes you one hell of an employee. So you need to keep and drive these things home because this is how you have a killer team. And you can create that just by keeping yourself and keeping them honest. Sorry for time. Okay, we're good. So both these things drive into a really important element that I want to stress to you guys. You need to be able to show respect. This is everything I've talked about is all it comes down to. Everything we've talked about in terms of this lecture and many lectures before this is just respect. It's just showing people that you care about them, you care about the project, and you care enough about your career to make sure everything goes well, that you're putting the work in. Respect comes in the form of listening. Respect comes in the form of effort. Respect comes in the form of trying to make sure that goals are met and collaboration. If you can make your brand that you respect both projects and people, you're set. You literally just redefine that in whatever context of job you want. And in any context of a job you want, if you can act with that kind of positivity and support for both projects and people, as an employee, as a team lead, as a CEO, as an indie person, you'll destroy everything. All right, so it's like a stream. All right. Respect everyone. And this is really important. I know some of you have had teachers that have been frustrating during your time at Humber. We've talked about that. We've had bosses at work, I know we've talked about as well, that have been frustrating. If you think that this is the last time you're ever going to have a shitty boss, buckle up, because you're in for very rude surprises. Even in something like game design, which is such a technical field, there are always going to be problematic people you'll have to work with. That's a fact of life, and if you think it's ever going to change, you're hilariously wrong. You need to come to terms with that, and it's never, ever, it ever has in work, in school, and it never will in your future career be acceptable to not work or not be respectful of someone, even if you don't find them a positive person to work with for any reason. Be it incompetence, being foolish, conniving, political, it doesn't matter. You don't get to disrespect those people because they do something you don't like. Even if it's something everybody in the office doesn't like. You don't get to be the person who drags that person down because you're not happy about working with them, and you don't get to show them disrespect because you're not happy with working with them. It is not how you set a good brand. It's not how you set a good reputation. No matter how problematic somebody is, the best thing you can do is work your ass off to support the project and support everybody to make sure the project gets done. Essentially, you have two choices. You can work and spend a bunch of your time, instead of getting the project done, trying to torpedo this person in some way. You want to get them fired, you don't want to work with them, you want to move to another department. You can spend all your time trying to work away from this person, get away from them in any way you can. Or you can just accept that they have these problems, accept that this is another thing that you have to problem solve on a daily basis or weekly basis or whatever. Accept that you have to problem solve this, support them, support the project, work your ass off, get everything fixed, get everything done, and at the end of the day, show all the work you've done. Which of those two do you think is going to be better when you're arguing for a promotion? All right, good talk. Moving on. And this kind of speaks back to what I was talking about before when we were talking about listening. It's not, one of the things I don't like is often a lot of leadership programs, a lot of education programs and managerial programs talk about being a leader, always lead, take the lead. A lot of schools push that. A lot of our high schools say, we're all going to make leaders. The problem is not everybody can lead. Only a few people can lead. Everyone else needs to be a team and get shit done. And so good leadership programs don't just teach leadership, but they also teach how to follow effectively and how to follow someone else's lead and give someone ownership of the project. For a long time in your career, you're going to have to be able to demonstrate this. Being able to listen to someone, and even if you think there might be a better way to do it, or this is the wrong way to do it, or this is a bad idea, sometimes you need to follow it because you don't have all the information. You don't know what other conversations, what objectives are being laid down, what stuff needs to get done in order for somebody else in another department to get stuff done. Or, for example, it might not be the optimal route for you to get your work done, but it might be the only way for networking to make stuff happen. Or it might be the only way for another department to get stuff done, even if it makes a shitload of extra work for you because you have to do databasing in a really crappy, awkward way. Or it's just like super drudge work. Sometimes you need to just listen to them because they have more information. They've had the problem-solving discussions. They're having meetings amongst all the team leads with the directors. They're getting direction from them. It may not even be their decision. So you need to be able to demonstrate not just leadership, but following as well. It isn't blind, though. Sometimes you need to do your best to tell your boss, your team lead, whoever, that you think there's a better way to do it. And this is careful, and you have to be tactful and respectful in how you do this. But often the best way to do it is simply to present them with another option. Simply to come up to them and say, hey, we could do it this way, and these are the benefits and the cons. These are the problems that would come from it. But these are also the benefits we get of doing it this way. And be realistic about both. Look, if we do it this way, we can do it faster. We can do it, move on to other stuff. It'll allow us to do this later. But these are the problems. It's going to be more memory intensive. It's going to be more expensive. Which one do you want to do? But I think this might be the best way to do it. That can be the best way to do it, because you're not telling them to do something. You're not telling your boss how to do it. You're simply saying, hey, I can see another avenue. Because that affords them the room to say, thought about it, somebody else in the team leads thought of it, we can't do it because of this and that. Or they might just say, we can't do that. Or no. But at the very least, you're giving them the option to simply, you're giving them the social option to say, yeah, thought of it, these are the reasons we can't do it. Instead of you telling them how you think it should be done. It's tactful, it's respectful, but it's very touch and go, and you need to know your boss better in order to do this effectively. Don't do this day one. Do this later. Make sure they're showing you respect as well, and they respect your ideas before you go trying to tell everybody how to do their jobs, which is how this can feel. Great example, really quickly, that I want to run through is the idea of a game called Star Citizen, which you've all heard of. And there's an element in the game where you can fly from space directly into the atmosphere of a planet. Technologically, it's nuts. And the quick version of the story is simply that one of the engineering leads a few years ago went into Chris Taylor's office and said, hey, I think I know how to do this. And this is, especially 2 years ago, this was insane technologically to do. Like, nobody could do this. And Chris goes, yeah, it's cool. You've got bigger fish to fry. Don't do it. You don't have time to fuck around with something that's probably not going to work. Get back to work. And the guy went back in a week later and said, hey, I really think I can do this. And Chris went, I told you no. The answer's still no. And the guy was so sure he could do it that he went to HR and filed for all of his sick leave and his vacation time. Took the next 3 weeks off. He went home and he locked himself in his house, and over 3 weeks built the entire prototype. He walked back into Chris Taylor's office. He put the laptop on his desk, and Chris Taylor looked at him, opened the laptop, ran the build. The lead engineer goes, fly at that planet. Chris just stares at him and turns the engine on and flies at the planet. And he enters atmosphere. And he sees it. He closes the laptop, and he still hasn't said anything. He walks out into the main cubicle area, and he just goes, everybody stop. All of you, you're working on this now. So there are times when you can be absolutely positive you're right, and you really do take that. But you need to remember that that is a hell of a Hail Mary. He had to know that he was going to be right. And even then, to cover his ass, he did it on his own personal time. It took all of his leave because he was told no. And I think what I like most about this story is he still respected the no, and he took his own personal time to prove that it was right. It did not undermine his boss's decision. He simply accepted the no and did his best to prove the boss that he was right in a way that didn't disrupt the workflow of the team, in a way that was respectful to the judgment of the boss. Brilliant, but you cannot do this every time. That was a real risk, because he was basically told, or rather, I'm going to just paraphrase. If I was in Chris's situation, I would have looked at that lead engineer and went, this is great. Don't you ever do that again. I told you no. You can't do that. You need to know it's going to work, and you can do that once. And you need the trust of the boss, and you need to have the clout politically within a work environment to be able to do that. That's not something you do on day 3. Because even if you're right, if you walk into Ubisoft and on day 3 you do something like that, your ass is grass. You need to know that you're going to get away with it before you ever consider this, and you need to be deeper into your career. Would not recommend. And as a result, which is going to be much more important, is the concept of just shutting up and saying, copy that. It's a very difficult skill to learn, and it's one I struggle with too. But sometimes, even if you don't think this is the right way to go, especially early in your career, you need to just shut up and say, copy that. It's just what it is. It's not your decision to make. When you're further on in your career and you understand how these decisions get made more, and you're in the position to make decisions yourself, you'll have more impact on these conversations. But for now, you gotta respect the decisions of your team leads. You will become a team lead. And they know how this stuff works, because in these environments, you don't just go to a managerial program and get sent in as a technical lead for a game company. It's not how it works. Instead, what'll happen is for 5 to 10 years, people bash code, and when they start burning out, that's when they get promoted to a team lead. So the people who are your bosses, your immediate bosses, understand the tech. And so you should trust and need to trust that they know what they're talking about, because they got there by putting the work in. So it's easy to say shut up and copy that when you remind yourself that these people got where they are because they know what the fuck they're talking about. So show them that respect. It's going to keep coming back up. A great example of this is at Bungie. The systems are really complicated there. Their engine is kind of garbage, and it takes upwards of something like 20 to 30 hours to render out environments, meaning they have to know what they're going to do is going to work in terms of the build. If they're going to change something, they have to know it's not going to break the build, because that's another 60 hours to fix it. Render it out, then bake whatever you're going to do, and then render it back in. It's a nightmare. So they need to know whatever changes they make are going to work, which means Bungie has actually started hiring technical engineers who are essentially hardcore tech coders with team leadership skills, who walk around the office rubber ducking problems for people and making sure everything is going to work properly. It's brilliant. And this is a great problem-solving experience and a great way to show both listening and leadership from team leads, and getting your staff to actually problem solve and take the leadership role. Hey, I think this is what I'm trying to do. This is what I think I'm going to do. Do you think that'll work? And the engineer will go, yeah, it's a great idea. Or, no, have you considered this? Oh shit, you're right. And now we have workflow going both up and down in the team leadership role, and you're giving the coders the opportunity to problem solve in a really effective way. Brilliant. I hope more companies do this, and I really would push you guys to consider that as a career goal, because that's an awesome, awesome job to have. Next, biggest thing is, okay, good. I'll quiet on the home front. You're going to see the following things a lot, especially these days, because these are the new hotness in terms of management. That's why I put them on your radar. First and foremost, Agile, and secondly, one we've already talked about, which is Scrum. These two fit within a similar package together, which is this idea of Agile team management. We started it, we talked about it a little bit in brief, but you're going to see it a lot. So what I would strongly recommend, and this is the last thing we're going to talk about, and it's the end of the material for today, is I would strongly recommend that you guys go and find a couple of books on Agile. These are books that will talk to you about how this new managerial system works. It's not super new anymore. It's a few years old, but it really is the new hotness, and companies everywhere are starting to use it. It works really well in game dev because it's a way to shape your daily meetings that were happening anyway. So you should really be familiar with Scrum, and ideally you should be familiar with Agile. There's strong things to flex on in a job interview, and they're really good things for you to know if you're interested in becoming a team lead at a major company, because it means you've already got a good chunk of the training done. HR is still going to make you do the training, but you'll be ahead of the races, and you'll be much more effective when you actually get into that position. But that is it for today. That covers everything I want to do. Again, we blasted through that. Normally that would be about 25 minutes longer, but I mean, without the interaction of the class or asking questions, I find these slides go a lot quicker. So thank you guys. Thank you for an amazing year. If there's anything I've missed with this or any other slides, as always, just let me know. And I'll see you guys for your last class this week. Cheers, guys, and have a good one.